For a session produced by the MacArthur Foundation, please welcome James Bell, President of the W. Hayward Burns Institute, and Lori Garducki, Criminal Justice Program Director at the MacArthur Foundation.
Good morning. First, I want to do a shout out to the Atlantic for creating this forum to bring all of you together to hear about the race and justice in the city of San Francisco. So I direct the criminal justice program in the MacArthur Foundation, and we launched an initiative 3 years ago called the Safety and Justice Challenge. And its aim is to change the way America thinks about and uses jails, with the idea that jails are a major driver of over-incarceration in the United States. And what we found when we first started looking at the landscape of criminal justice reform, that the front end of the system had largely been overlooked. And yet the number of people who are admitted to jail are around 11 million admissions annually. That's 20 times the number of people who are admitted to prison every year. And the drivers of over-incarceration reflected in the use and misuse and overuse of jails fall disproportionately on low-income people and communities of color. But it's much more challenging to address what happens with the use of jails, because what you're seeing is the exercise of discretion. So we're now working in 52 jails across the United States, which represent what jails look like. So we're working in large jails that are unified, like in New York City, to smaller jails, such as you see in Toledo, Ohio. So what James and I are going to talk about today is what's happening specifically here in San Francisco. Because what we've learned is that while this is a problem that's national in scope, the way to address them really depends on what happens locally. And many of the panelists that you've already heard from this morning have talked about the changes that have occurred in the city in the last 10 to 12 years. Some would say it's hollowed out the city. Some would say the income disparity is distressing. And some would say the city's lost sight of its core values. So as we think about equity and justice through a racial lens, we've thought about it in different approaches. Is this about public safety? So you heard a panel address it from that issue. Is it public health, or it should be a more holistic approach? But what's clear is you have to go forward here in San Francisco. And while we can learn lessons from the past, the question is, how do you go forward? So we've heard from technocrats and the experts and the practitioners and the policymakers. You will hear from the humanists talking about what justice should look like, and most importantly, from the residents, the people who are most impacted by the system. So James, as a longstanding resident of San Francisco who's seen these changes,
hanging on by a thread.
In your mind, if we can make this all happen, 1, what will success look like? 2, how will we know it? 3, what will it take? And 4, not done yet, can it be done? And this is just to give you an opportunity to talk about whatever you'd like, but
right. No.
Which I know you'll do 1, anyway.
2, 3, 4, right? Because this meter is
that's all you.
Right.
Okay.
So the first thing I think is, can it be done? Yes. Will it be done? I'm highly doubtful, because in fact, there is the ability to do it here. The question is the political will to get it done. And so what I feel like as a San Franciscan, and I'm sure I've heard other panels where they say, I used to live in what was the Mission. I used to live in what was the Fillmore, now we call the No More. I mean, these things live in people's hearts. They live in their stories and they live in their emotions. And so what we have is not a sense of urgency in San Francisco about losing communities of color to whatever we lose them from. And so for me, this housing boom, this income inequality is a failure of the marketplace. You can't have a community where teachers can't live here, restaurant people can't be servers here, that the way to do the new restaurant is to actually have you order your burger at the counter and have a machine deliver because we can't afford workers. I mean, that is not a future for this community. So I feel like San Francisco is at war with itself. There are people that pat itself on the back. It's so progressive. And actually, when you look at the school segregation statistics, when you look at the housing statistics, we are Mississippi. We are Alabama. We are Louisiana. We are all those places that we say we're not. And that's because there's no sense of urgency here about what's happening to communities of color. So that's the is. So what can we do about it? First is we need to have in the justice sector some way, which I think we can get to. It might be with the help of the MacArthur Foundation and San Francisco Foundation and other funders, other philanthropies, to figure out a way to bring the players together. People always say the justice system or the youth justice system. It is not a system. It is a collection of semi-autonomous agencies that have no responsibility to each other. The DA is elected. The public defender is elected. The sheriff is elected. The judge can't tell the police what to do. The police can't tell the DA what to do. The DA can't tell the public defender what to do. Probation, who knows who tells them what to do. So essentially, everybody is acting autonomously, and everybody will say, and I got elected, and the people said I can do this. There's no one in charge. And to fix the problems that we have in San Francisco, someone has to be in charge. And what that means is that we as a community have to force these heads of departments to come together to act on an issue, whether it's homelessness, whether it's smash and grabs, whether it is what you do when you can no longer sell weed because all the rich people are selling weed now, so that's not what you're doing. So, I mean, that is an economy. It's funny, but it isn't. Because somebody had a job doing that now they ain't got $300,000 to get in the game, so now they're going to do something else.
So one of the issues, though, in thinking about what the solution set should be, you mentioned that the criminal justice system isn't a system. Yeah. It's an apparatus, and arguably it functions the way it was designed.
Yes.
But the other systems that need to be involved, yes, what are they?
Right. Because what we know is, I'm sure that what we've talked about and what are the issues of justice in 2018 are really social problems. They are problems of poverty, income inequality. So the justice sector does not have enough tools in its kit to fix what keeps being sent to it. Well, we don't like something as a society, we criminalize it, and we ask Chief Scott and the DA George and the public defender Jeff to fix it, and the sheriff to house them. Those four together cannot fix the social problems that are being sent to them. So we need health, parks and rec, homeless services. We need those people to work together. And so, for example, Lori, if you go to the neighborhoods, we all know if we're in San Francisco, 94124, we could just do the 94s and shout them out. There ain't but 4 of them, right? That's where all of it is. And the rest of the city doesn't know those 4 zip codes, okay, or tries to stay away from them. So if we have 2 families receiving service from the health department and probation, one hand doesn't know what the other hand's doing. I got 3 visits a month from different agencies, and they're all different. What we should do is identify who are the families that are being served by 2 or more departments and force them through the budget process with the Board of Supervisors to say, how are we serving those families and how are our dollars coming together to serve those families as one? And then after we do that, say, what are the measurements to say that that family's doing better, and who will be held accountable to make sure that that money is being spent right? Now everybody's got a program in their department, but they can't tell you whether that program in Parks and Rec is helping the people with health or helping the people on probation, and they're all getting their money.
So what kind of a political structure do you think could make this happen? Are you talking about a justice czar?
Yeah, and so to me, that's the conversation. The conversation is going forward, as you suggest, Lori, what would it look like to get these departments who are actually doing what they were established to do, and that is social control. Those departments were established to keep you poor folks from acting the fool around us. And so what we're going to talk about is how is it that we can then bring them together and hold them accountable. That's the conversation to have. I'm not a government person. I don't know what that looks like. But until we get it, we're going to continue to get what we got.
So in our last 10 seconds, I want you to address the issue, and they're going very quickly, about a racial lens to this. We've talked about income inequality. We've talked about poverty. How does racial justice play into this?
You have to, you can't sprinkle racial justice into some random program. You have to lead with the urgency of what is happening to the majority of people in this state, people of color in the communities that are there. You have to lead with that and use that as your equity frame, not say we want to build parks and, oh, by the way, they should be equitable, because nobody knows what the hell that means.
So again, I would like you all to thank James for his comments, and remember the Safety and Justice Challenge. It's here in San Francisco, and hopefully can push the city to take responsibility and ownership of these issues, along with the community residents, and promote a safer and fairer and more just and equitable criminal justice system. Thank you all very much.